going to be boring. You're going to have to send it to me somehow if I'm going to edit, because
this is going to be a 10-minute episode. We can just use clips from the trailer. But anyway, hello! We're live, and welcome to Oily Trash Reviews. This is a new episode, a new type of show in which Daddy Warbucks and Bubblegum Barbie review a movie that we've seen. We just talk about it. It's different from our other podcasts. We don't say anything unfunny in this episode. This is serious.
Yeah, this one's a serious one. Got some notes. Well, right now I haven't written any notes because we literally just decided this 5 minutes ago to do this stuff. Anyway, so I'm Bubblegum Barbie.
And I'm Daddy Warbucks. The format of this show goes, Bubblegum introduces herself first, so that's the first major shakeup. But today, we're going to be talking about a movie that we saw recently called Barbarian.
I saw it for the first time, so I'm going off of first-time views where War saw it the second time. And we love this movie. This is a good horror film.
This is truly a movie that fills you with dread. I jokingly call it the movie where someone just descends an infinite layer of basements. It's just one basement into a sub-basement, into a sub-basement, into a deeper secret door into the basement, into another secret door, and it just goes on forever.
I like the beginning scene is where we see the house and we see a woman and it's pouring rain. It's so uncomfortable. It's pitch black and you just see this lit house in the scene and she's trying to go in. She's knocking on the door. She's having issues and the porch light turns on.
Yeah, so the movie starts out, woman meets strange, creepy guy.
Both of them could be creepy, right? Because she is invading him. The guy is in the house and it's like, no, I rented this home. What are you talking about? He provides her receipts. And I mean, the fact that he let her in, that is eerie in itself. Because if you think about the situation, if you were in his situation, what would you do, right? Like there was this whole talk, which I thought was very interesting, is when they're sitting on the couch and they've already introduced themselves, already provided receipts. It was obviously an error and neither of them are quote unquote dangerous to one another. But there was that dialogue of privilege of sex. I thought was really interesting because he mentioned it's like, what are you talking about? You came in, it's pouring rain in the middle of the night and knocked or tried to come in and force yourself into the house. And she was like, well, but me as a woman, you know, it's terrifying and scary. And yes, it is going in the middle of the night, going into the neighborhood, it's pouring rain, it's pitch black. And you're trying to get into this house that you rented and some strange man is there. I thought that whole intro to the film was fantastic. That dialogue was great.
What I enjoyed, one, the horror and tension are fantastic. Every time our hero or heroine is standing looking down the steps, like the dread that it conjures as she slowly descends into deeper and deeper basements and these underground tunnels, that's all horrifying. The way the sets are used, whereas this movie does have some flashbacks to the 80s, and we see, so this whole street, I'm presuming, is a set, because we see back in the 80s, everything is green grass, bright skies, all the paint is bright and beautiful on all these homes. And then in the present day, in the 2020s, this whole street is run down. The houses are half collapsed. They're dilapidated. They're covered in graffiti. The roofs are caving in. The windows are boarded up. And same with the interior of the house, where, you know, we see it with both modern decorations and then also with 70s decor, where you've got the flower wallpaper and just, you know, generally like shag carpet. The details are eluding me, but just seeing that same set in multiple decades I thought was great. And that's like a great economy of sets too. The non-linear storytelling, where it keeps cutting back and keeps sort of shifting focus to different people's stories and perspectives, was amazing. And we were talking about earlier where the whole beginning feels like an extended cold open. But then at the end of the second section with Justin Long, we see that he is reunited or united for the first time with our heroine. And then from several weeks ago, who's been apparently kidnapped and missing for weeks. And then, boom, we cut away again, and now we're back in the 80s, and it's like, okay, this is a completely different part of the story, but he also connects because that person that we see is, quote, the Barbarian. he is the man that they find in these underground tunnels. It's almost like space opera, but in a horror, like a spooky haunted house horror movie. It defies genre. I think this movie is horror opera.
I liked the idea of home invasion in another level because technically the barbarian who was living under the dwellings was the previous owner, but he built an underground for his disgusting, horrific torture chambers. The idea of home invasion is petrifying.
Well, it's almost a take on there's a person in the walls type movie, you know, or there's someone living in the attic, but instead of it being in the attic or in the walls, this is living under your feet, you know?
And then the dynamic of the female character finding her reaction to how she felt when she found this torture chamber in comparison to the homeowner and how he reacted to those torture chambers. We also had Limpy talk. Limpy saw this movie with us, and his commentary was funny and interesting. And he mentioned, he's like, how is it that he's reacting this way by seeing that this is not what he's disgusted about? It's this other scene as it goes deep into the film.
It's almost like it's like that lens of gender again, where the woman goes in and she sees like the camera and like the dirty bed, and she's just horrified. She's like, "We got to get out of here." And then he sees it. He doesn't even acknowledge his surroundings. He's just like measuring with his tape measure and doing and like dragging the bed around so he can get better measurements. And then he sits on it and he's like, "Oh, gross! What am I doing?" It really is to comedic effect, because then it's like taking the piss. You know, he's going down into this torture dungeon. He's like, "Oh man, I can add all this square footage, sweet," and he's just down there like doing shit with his tape measure, and then lo and behold, the monster comes and gets him. Which that whole sequence was brilliant.
It was brilliant because the way he just didn't discover that he was in danger until he was in danger was so funny.
He was like the Wile E. Coyote running off of the edge of the cliff, and he doesn't even realize it. He's just still walking, and then he looks down and he's like, "Oh, there's a monster," and then he falls and plump, he's dead.
Yeah. Oh gosh. The one scene that I'm still confused about is when he finds the father. That whole sequence was very strange.
All right. Why did you find that strange?
The fact that he committed because the fact that the daughter stepped away when our lead was going into the room and ignored him and walked away as he was going in there. So that was a tell sign that this creature is terrified of whatever's behind the door. And then he opens the door and it's a man,
it's a sickly old man. Then
there was the scene where he sees the videos and he sees the horrific acts he has committed. So he's been caught, he's been found, and maybe that's why. Well,
Justin Long, he specifically says, "Listen, we're gonna have cops all over this place." So the true villain of this movie is a pedophile, incestuous rapist, which is basically like the most, like all of the evil things combined into one. And so I took it that he, gay men's because he's like, the jig's up. I've been found out, because he's been living in secret in this basement doing these horrible things and copulating with his own incestuous born daughters. And he's like, okay, game's up. I'm either gonna get killed in prison or I'm gonna kill myself. And so this was also a sequence of Leave It to Your Imagination, where we saw our woman sees the room where there's a bed with like blood stains on it and a camera sitting there pointing at the bed. And then we see Justin, once he finds the old man's room, there's like a wall full of tapes, and they leave it to your imagination. You're like, this is a dungeon where people were held captive and God knows what depravities were unleashed upon them. And then we just see Justin's reaction as he watches the tape. They never show any of what the Barbarian does. He just looks at the tape. He's like, what the fuck, man? What kind of crazy, sick fuck are you? Classic leave it to the audience's imagination. I think another reason why this movie is successful is the different types of horror, where it starts off like very typical slasher monster movie type where it's like, okay, there's something scary in the basement. And in a traditional movie, it would have been these people go down into the basement and like one by one they're killed off, or like they're captured and they get tortured, something like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But then we shift away from that, and then we've got the horror of this man who is, it's almost like a torture porn type movie where he's kidnapping people, abusing them, assaulting them, doing unspeakable acts to them. We've got the monster, which is a giant, super strong, incestuous creature. So we also have like monster movie type horror. And then also in a sense, we have the gross out type humor where this monster is a naked woman who looks like she's 80. Her teeth are all, she's missing teeth. The teeth that she has are all pointing in different directions.
Obviously has never brushed her teeth.
Never has brushed her teeth. Doesn't wear socks. And she's got these giant saggy boobs. And she tries to breastfeed Justin Long, believing, she essentially abducts him and tries to make him her baby. So you've got the gross out horror, you've got all these different types of horror blended together that it doesn't matter what you're afraid of, something in this movie will hit on it.
So I have a theory, and you know how our creature was obsessed with baby and kept saying baby. Either A, she was pregnant on her, that incestual generation linkage and lost her baby, or B, she just couldn't make babies. And that's another reason as to why the older man may want to just off himself, is because he doesn't have a new price coming in next generation, because she hasn't been able to provide a seed, which is why she's kidnapping these human beings who come into the dwellings and is just obsessed and want to take care of them and give them love and all this stuff. And that's my theory with that monster.
All right, yeah, well, the monster does become sympathetic at the end, because really the monster is a victim of the Barbarian. This is a product of a life of abuse, life of living in a dungeon, a life no life at all. It's in a sense, it is a victim.
Stockholm syndrome, like we talked about.
Absolutely.
Because she's able to go outside. Remember the homeless man who's like, oh no, you don't want to be around this area, because she'll go out and look for you. So at night, she'll be out here. So that's another interesting theory. So she has the ability to escape and go out, but doesn't leave, and always goes back. So it's kind of that Stockholm syndrome type thing. And that was interesting. Also, what I found interesting is that our main lead has similar traits as our ultra villain, which is the father. His case is that he is being accused, and this is allegations of sexual abuse with one of his co-stars and friends.
And for context, in the movie, he is an actor, so it's very much like a Me Too type thing, where his coworker is accusing him of literally raping her, not just assault, not just inappropriate behavior. She specifically uses the R word in the accusation, and like at first it's kind of ambiguous. Like, did he do this? Is he just someone who's getting railroaded by the system? Because all the dominoes start falling down. But then he does reveal that he really pushed this woman into this. So
then the audience is told over the conversation when he calls her and leaves her a message and says things that are very telling. And I thought that was really great. About this movie, it's like a really interesting feeling when it comes to this main lead and how you feel about him and the things he does. But then at the end of the movie, it's like, oh, like it's so freaking brilliant. Oh my gosh.
So let's get into the end, because we are revealed that Justin Long did commit this assault, and there's definitely parallels with he was the main lead of this television show, and he brought on this woman. You've got the power dynamic and a lot of things about like assault, and especially like in the workplace and in real life, it comes down to power. And the Barbarian is the patriarch of the family, and you could see that the giant monster woman, even though she's a million times stronger than the man who's an old crippled guy, she's still fearful and revenant of him. And that's because of the power dynamic. And just, we talked Stockholm syndrome. She lived her whole life sort of presumably under his very cruel heel. And in the same sense, Justin Long was using his power, and really, men are stronger than women, and a big component of sexual abuse is oftentimes just leveraging power. And then also we've got themes of redemption, which Justin, he believes, perhaps deludedly, that if he saves Tess, who was our female lead, I can save you. If I save you, I'm a good person. And, that would be a redemption. We do see a lot of movies in which the hero may have done something bad in the beginning of the movie, or has lost the trust of the people, or his family, or his loved ones, and thus has to do something to redeem himself. And you believe that's gonna happen, but at the moment of the climax, he chooses to sacrifice Tess, throw her off the water tower to save himself. So any act of redemption he has is immediately dashed, and instead we see the monster redeemed, which she dives off, catches Tess, and then we see the monster make the ultimate sacrifice to save Tess. But then it's like, oh, jump scare, the monster comes back up, kills Justin Long, and then Tess sort of mercy kills the monster. And I think that having the monster come back to life sort of diminishes her redemption, because she didn't sacrifice anything. She risked an injury, essentially, and that's not quite enough. I think the monster should have died saving Tess, and then Tess, realizing that Justin Long tried to kill her to save himself, she should have picked up the gun, shot him, and then she walks off into the sunlight. I think that would have been a better structure of the ending, but, that's very subjective. What are your thoughts on the final act?
I mean, I agree with you. We talked about this. I agreed with that itself, but I did like the way he died. And the only way he could die that way which was really horrific, was by this super strong creature. I mean, the eye scene was really great, and then her literally cracking his head in half. Oh, that was so gross.
Yeah, and I think that's why they did it, was because they wanted to have that awesome, super ultra violent, gory end, which is fun, which is why it works for me.
And the scene of this creature putting in her nasty boobs on our lead was so gross. And then the bottle, it was what you feel.
It was a glass bottle from like the 80s.
Yes, exactly. It was a glass bottle from the 80s, and then the nipple was it was so big, or it looked big from the viewing. It looked like the kind that you feed the goats with, the baby goats. But it was slimy and ultra full, and she kept wanting to feed it to our main lead, and there was hair on it. And it was so...
It was crusty and nasty.
And then we see our female lead, who is still alive, drink from it. That was horrific.
And more horrific is that's how she has survived the past 3 weeks, was drinking this nasty monster mummy milker, titty milk.
I do want to point out, I think the casting was great, specifically the Swedish Alexander Skarsgård.
Bill Skarsgård.
He is known as Pennywise, the new Pennywise.
What?
Yes, he is the new Pennywise. And seeing him in this, he was the first actor that I recognized. Going in and watching this, I had no idea, but as soon as I saw him open that door, I was like, this is going to be great, because this is a great Swedish actor. And wow.
And yeah, Justin Long was great too. He was fantastic as that smug prick asshole that he gets a little bit of success, and he's charismatic, so almost like a narcissist, and You just want to punch him in the face.
Yeah, very, very, very Hollywood. Very Hollywood. High Hollywood.
Very I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to offend you, Bubble. I know you're Hollywood, but he really gives you that Hollywood vibe.
I think he was fantastic. He was a great cast for him as well. The female was also really good. I know that I've seen her before. I just can't pinpoint it. Bill Skarsgård was so great.
Really, the characters are strong, the premise is strong, the plot's strong. I like everything about this movie. Some of the timeline stuff doesn't quite work out if you actually stop to think about it, but that's fine. I don't care about that. The movie is entertaining enough without needing to be 100% sensible on paper.
Overall, I think it was really, really good.
What do you give it?
Oh, what I give it? Oh, man. It's not as good as Suspiria, but it's pretty good. I liked it. I think this is a movie that's going to stay with me for a while. I do want to watch it again. So I want to give it a solid 8 of bubblegums. Really good.
Yeah, I would give it, but yeah, maybe 8 Warbucks right off the top here. This was a fantastic movie. I wholeheartedly recommend it, and I loved it.
Yeah, and watch it this Spooktober. I definitely recommend you guys watching it with your whole family, by yourself.
In your basement with all the lights off, with your doors unlocked, on a rainy night.
And I hope you enjoyed our review. And I hope next episode maybe we could have notes, and we probably will, and then lose them.
Yeah. As soon as we click record.
So please like and subscribe. And if you don't,
we're going to lock you in our creepy torture dungeon.
With a creature we found.
We're going to make you be breastfed by a monster. All right, take care, comb your hair.
And remember to mace directly in your dungeon monster's face.
Bye. Bye.